A few days ago, we got an email from a client with a very specific problem. They said they're dealing with a massive amount of information. Things change every single day, and their team is constantly going back to old documents just to find simple answers. They're not short on data, they're short on time. They didn't ask for a chatbot that writes content or generates articles. They asked for something that remembers what they already have. This is where a RAG chatbot comes in. RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. Most chatbots try to answer directly from what they were trained on. They generate a response based on patterns, probabilities, and past examples. A RAG chatbot works differently. Before it answers, it first retrieves relevant information from your own documents, your own notes, and your own internal knowledge base. Only after that does it generate a response using that retrieved context. So instead of guessing, it looks things up first. That one difference completely changes how reliable the system is, especially when accuracy actually matters. In this case, the client operates like a news or intelligence agency. They deal with briefs, updates, internal summaries, and fast-changing information on a daily basis. The problem isn't lack of data. The problem is recall. They needed a way to ask questions across everything they already know without digging through folders, PDFs, or old messages. So in this video, I'll show you how we design a proper RAG chatbot for this exact use case, how the workflow is structured, and how we connect it to a clean chat interface that the client can actually use. Let's break it down.
Before I start building the workflow, I want to make sure that I have proper UI to test whether my webhook is properly working. So I'm now in n8n. I already have a webhook added which will receive the data from Lovable. So I want to see whether this webhook actually gets the data from Lovable first before I dive into anything deep. We'll be making the UI first and then going into the backend, which is the n8n workflow. I already have a prompt with me to build this chat interface. So as you can see, I have clearly adhered to the guidelines of prompting, which is to set the purpose first, tell the requirements clearly, tell what kind of behaviors are happening inside the application when you are doing certain stuff. All of these properly mentioned inside the prompt. Otherwise, you will not get what you want out of this interface. Now I will go ahead and make this interface. Now, as you can see, the UI is properly done. Now I need to make sure that when I click on the send button and ask question from this UI interface, there's actually data going back to n8n. So to do that, I will go back to the n8n interface. I will copy this test URL. And now when I go back to a Lovable and send the data to this webhook. Now I will make this relevant change using Lovable. Okay, now it's finished making the changes. Let's test it out again and actually listen for test event to Lovable and ask something. What is my name? And let's click on send now. And you receive a message called the workflow has started. And when we go back in, as you can see, we have properly got the question and the timestamp with it as well. Now that we have taken a look at whether data is coming through to n8n from Lovable, now it's time to create the rest of the workflow. So first of all, let's start by adding the AI agent to this. Search for AI agent node. Now the AI agent has been added. So there are three things you need to add into the AI agent for it to work properly. One is the chat model. The chat model will help you make decisions whenever the AI agent is connected to the UI and the message is coming into n8n. So workflow, I will be using OpenAI chat model. Make sure that your OpenAI account is properly connected in 2 credentials here. If you don't have something connected, all you have to do is just click on this drop down here and click on create new credential and give your API key and you're good to go. Now let's go ahead and add a memory here. So for this purpose, we will be only needing simple memory. There are other types of memories as well if you're using those kind of databases. For this workflow, the simple memory is more than enough. I will keep the context window length as it is. I will keep it as default for now. Now we have to add main tool that will actually make this the right workflow, the vector store. When you click on this plus icon below tool, you can search for vector store. All the relevant vector stores that are inside n8n will be visible to you. I will be using Pinecone vector store because it is really efficient when you're getting in data. There are actually a couple of things you need to configure inside this Pinecone vector store node. Before we get started with actually configuring this node, you need to make sure that you have index created first inside Pinecone. So to do that, let's quickly head on to Pinecone's website, and over here inside the database section, you will be able to find the creating index button over here. So this is where all your embeddings are stored. All the files you send converted into embeddings are stored inside an index. So you need to make sure that you have a proper index in place for these embeddings to be stored. Let's go ahead and first of all create an index first. I will just give a name like sample for this index, and over here it is important that you are selecting the proper embedding you are using inside an index. So in my case, I am planning on using the OpenAI's text embedding Dreamworld. So I will be choosing text embedding 3 small one from here as well. And now I will keep this default for now, but if you get familiar in the future with how these database cloud providers work, you can go ahead and configure these operations according to your need. But for now, I will keep this as default. And now I will create the index. It has been successfully created. There's one thing to note though. You can't really add files into this like traditional database. There's no upload button anywhere being shown here. That is because all of these files, text files, need yet to be converted into embeddings first before storing inside an index. Let's go ahead and actually make custom workflow to do that. And then we will get back to making our chatbot. The first thing you need to add is basically a trigger. So way to start this workflow. So I will be going into this add nodes icon, add nodes button, and I will be adding trigger manually button. You can add anything you want here, but since I will be only adding a node, since I will be only downloading the file and storing inside N10, I just need a manual node to execute it whenever I need it to. So I will add this here right now. And next we want the Google Drive one. So we got our trigger. Next we want to go into these node selections right here. So let me just quickly go into these node selections and type in Google Drive. So there are a lot of actions here. All you need to do for this one is download the file. So we test the workflow. It's going to download this file. And so let's go with download file here. And over here, you need to properly configure your credentials here. If you haven't, all you have to do is click on create new credential and give your client ID and client secret. Or to get your client ID and client secret, all you have to do is go over to Google Cloud Console and create your own project here from here. And then go into the navigation menu, go into APIs and services, go into this credential section. And from here, you have your client ID and client secret according to whatever. So in here, you can see that the O 2.0 client IDs are visible here. If you go inside of this page, you will be able to see your client ID and client secret. All you have to do is just copy these values and add it into your N10 client ID and client secret section. That's all you have to do. So I forgot to mention one thing here. When you add in your client ID and client secret, there's also another thing that you need to add into this interface, the redirect URL. So in order to add this into here, all you have to do is just copy this OAuth redirect URL here. It will automatically copy it into your clipboard. And all you have to do is just come into this page and paste it here. After that, all your credentials will be working properly. Now, half of the workflow is complete. Now let's go ahead and add the Pinecone vector store, which is how we will push this file after downloading them. And in here, you will have to properly connect your credentials like before. So since I connected my API properly, I have my account linked here. Now from the list, the index we created before should be visible. So in my case, it is visible here because I have properly connected the API here. And now the stuff that is need to be done here is done. And now you need to connect it to Google Drive. And you need to select the embedding and document option. So document loaders are basically what loads your documents, and then after loading that document, it will then convert it into the embeddings using the embedding you choose from here. You can select what type of data is coming to this vector store node as well. In our case, Google Drive is giving out binary data, so select binary data from here, and all of these other stuff, just keep it as it is. And you do not need to go into a custom one because this already split 1,000 characters, and that is more than enough for our client for now. And keep those default settings. And if you want to change it, you can go ahead and go into a custom one, and you can select text filters according to your need from here. In my case, I do not need that. I will keep the simple text filtering for now. And next, we need the embedding. You remember what model we chose right last time when we were creating the index? That model needs to be selected here as well. So in our case, we selected the text embedding 3 small model from OpenAI. So I'll be going with that in here as well. And now almost everything is complete. All you have to do is run this workflow. As you can see here, I am encountering a small error when I'm trying to run the workflow that I just showed. So the same way, vector dimension does not match the current index. If you are encountering the same error as well, all you have to do is just recreate I will show you exactly what this error means now and why you need to recreate it. When you are creating your index and when you are like selecting the model for the text embedding, you will see something called this dimension right here. So this is what the N8N array is about. The vector dimension that I'm uploading, the file I'm uploading here, does not match the dimension of the index itself. So all you have to do is just click on this drop down button over here and change this to 1536, and now recreate the new index, and you will be able to successfully upload this file into the index. After uploading your file successfully, you will be able to see the records successfully inside Pinecone like this. Now we can finally get back into making our AI agent. Now we previously left off on configuring this Pinecone text store node. Now let's get back into it. So in the description, you need to give something like that, specify that this tool is to retrieve relevant documents that I just uploaded into my Pinecone vector store, and before answering your questions. That is all you had to do. You don't need to write paragraphs to this one. Just state what you are doing here and what you need out of this vector store node, and then you need to select the Pinecone index. Remember, we created two indexes. Make sure you select the correct one from here. In my case, the correct one with the correct dimensions is sample one, so I'll be selecting that here, and now that is finished. And I have also added the embeddings node as well in here. So this one, we select the text embedding 3 small when we were creating the index, and because of that, we will be selecting that model over here as well. Now you need a way to send the response you receive from this AI agent back to Lovable. So how to do that? To do that, you have to add a response to webhook node. For instance, we are receiving data from a webhook. We need to add a response to webhook node to send data back to the relevant UI interface. So just search for response to webhook, and you will see returns data for webhook, and you will see returns data for webhook, and you need to connect this to this AI agent. So when I run this full workflow, the first item that will be coming out of the AI agent, that is the one we need to respond to. So this respond with configuration, you need to choose first incoming item. And there's one more change to do. Actually, inside the webhook, the initial webhook that is capturing Lovable's data, you will have to change this respond variable to using respond to webhook node. Now everything is properly configured. Now I'm in the stat interface to test out whether the workflow is working properly or not. So before you do anything, you need to give this small prompt saying when the data gets sent into the webhook, we wait for the response from the webhook, then output that as the response. If you don't specify Lovable might give you a predefined response that is built inside the system. So in my case, the implementation was already done inside the system when I was making it initial. So there were no changes made in my case, but you guys might need to do that change. So make sure to give this prompt before you start anything. Now let's actually test this system out. And one more thing, make sure the webhook is listening to request sent by Lovable. Now I will paste this question that I have. Can you give me a brief rundown of the last quarter's numbers mentioned in the reports.pdf? So I will send it, and now look at the response, whether it will give me a proper response or not. As you can see, the proper response is outputted. This response is made by those scores we saw early in the Pinecone index. Let's make this output a little bit user-friendly, because right now it's in JSON format and this is not a really eye-catching way to see the output. So I will give this prompt to Lovable, change this from a JSON format to a nicer way, because the response should be nice and pleasant to look at and visually appealing. Let's see what the output is after making this change. Now it has made the necessary changes to our code. Now let's go ahead and try this out again. And I was able to get a more visually appealing output out of this system. If you are serious about building solutions like this and you're willing to learn step by step and work on real projects, you're welcome to join our free community. Inside, we teach everything from ground up, starting from zero with practical hands-on guidance. And if you're someone who's interested in using this solution but doesn't want to dive into technical side and instead wants to move fast and scale sooner, you can also partner with us and hire our tech team to build these systems for you. Either way, the goal is the same, helping you move from ideas to real working solutions.